Hi, I'm Lisa Leiter. In Chicago Business Today, the political week in review. Each week I'll sit down with our political columnist, Greg Hinz, to talk about the campaign to be Chicago's next mayor. Since we last spoke, Chico won a big endorsement. A new poll shows Rahm Emanuel is way ahead, and Miguel Diaz stopped by the Crain's editorial board. Greg and I started our conversation by talking about his profile on Rahm Emanuel to appear in next week's print edition of Crain's. So Greg, if Rahm Emanuel can hold on to his lead and become Chicago's next mayor, maybe even next month if he can get 50% of the vote and avoid a runoff, what are going to be the key differences between the way he will run the city and the way Mayor Daley ran it?
Well, we don't fully know yet, in part because Mr. Emanuel has been holding his cards pretty close to his vest. He's a very disciplined, controlled kind of guy, and they're going to tell us and they're going to tell us, and not a second before. But there's lots of indications that he's going to be much cheaper with a buck than Rich Daley. He has to be, given the financial condition of the city. But even by background, his reputation as being someone who is a little bit on the conservative side, at least by Democratic standards, in terms of spending money. He seems to be emphasizing public safety issues, police. Not that he's ignored schools, but I've heard an awful lot of talk about that from him, and that's kind of consistent with what he worked on when he was in the Clinton White House, assault weapons ban and more police on the streets and so forth. And then there's a whole bunch of temperamental issues.
Yes, the temperamental issues and his temper, which earned him the nickname Rambo. I mean, has he tempered that in recent years? I mean, how has his background and his personal, life going to impact the kind of mayor he'll be?
Well, he's now 51, so we tend to cool off a little bit as you get a little older. And in the sense that in some ways he's very much like Richard M. Daley, in the sense that he doesn't easily brook fools. He expects performance to be done. But he kind of takes it to a different level. And it's kind of interesting to figure out why he points to some family things. His family came here from Israel, and I guess they used to keep a board in the basement that would have literally pictures of photographs who hadn't made it to America because they were killed in a program or a war or whatever. And the message was real clear. You're here. You're an American. You have to do something with it. You don't just sit there. And then he had this experience with the finger. We've all heard the upper digit of his middle finger got cut off. Barack Obama once famously quipped that it rendered Rahm practically mute. Well, he went swimming right afterwards and got really sick, and he talked about that a little bit when I talked to him. And he says he had several different kinds of blood infections, gangrene. He was in the hospital, packed in ice for 7 weeks. 3 of his roommates in that time died. That was a pretty clear message to an impressionable young man that don't waste your time.
We're going to encourage everyone to read your story in next week's Crain's profiling Rahm Emanuel. But let's talk about some of the other candidates. Miguel Diaz stopped by our editorial board this week. What's your takeaway from that conversation?
Miguel, I kind of like Miguel. He's trying real hard. He doesn't have very much in resources, and he's trying to turn that lemon to lemonade, saying that, hey, that proves that I haven't been selling out and taking advantage of my government stuff. His main pitch is to kind of quietly liken himself to Harold Washington. He's for the little guy. He's going to help factory workers and neighborhood businesses or whatever, and not blow it all on fancy stuff downtown.
Okay. Well, Chico, let's talk about him. He's doing TV ads, trying to get in there. He got a key endorsement from Luis Gutierrez, which is kind of a slap at Rahm Emanuel, right?
Well, there's some bad blood between the Hispanic leaders and Mr. Emanuel over immigration reform, where they're convinced that not only did he not pursue the issue in the White House, but he actually told some of his allies when it was politically to their advantage to vote no against it, which, that's kind of heresy from their perspective. So Mr. Gutierrez has endorsed Mr. Chico. It certainly helped. It's a name. Gary has some money, and he's starting to spend it on TV. Not only does there need to be a runoff, he's got to be the number 2 guy, which means that which means realistically he's got to get one vote at least more than Ms. Braun.
Exactly, and then he
More
could,
than likely.
Yeah, and then he could benefit from the anybody but Rahm vote, right?
In a runoff, yes.
Okay. All right, Greg. Well, we'll be watching. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
And that's this edition of Chicago Business Today. Be sure to check out Greg's blog at chicagobusiness.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday.